WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is the legend. 1053, 95.3, WDXE.
And let's welcome Stan Pierchoski into the studio. Stan, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning. It is time for Bulletproof Estate Planning
It
with Pierchoski Estate Law and Stan Pierchoski himself here on Friday mornings.
I'm here every Friday morning.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And it's a wonderful day out there. Actually, the sun is shining. It's supposed to hit 60 degrees. You know, it usually warms up the rain, so I'm sure that's coming with it. But
I wouldn't doubt it, but I'm happy for the warmer temperature.
you know, I just want to get rid of the little patches of ice and snow that are still where you like pushed it away and piled it up. And
Yeah.
I just get tired of looking at it.
Yes. You know, what's funny is there was a little pile of snow. I thought back, we've got a small farm, and we got a handful of cows, and my cows are down there eating on a bale of hay we've got stuck down there, and I'm looking out the back, and I see what I think is a little leftover pile of snow, and I get my binoculars out to check on the cows. It turns out it's my son-in-law's dog. He's he's a big white dog, and he's hanging around with the cows down there.
Okay.
So anyway,
Why does that pile of snow keep moving around?
it just keeps moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you know, last Saturday we had my seminar. I had a seminar scheduled for the 24th, and that was the Saturday that all the ice decided to come.
Yeah.
And so we punted it out to the next Saturday, which I think was the 31st.
Yes.
At the Star Theater, and we had that. And the weather was good. There was no travel problems, but it was bitter cold that day.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 12 in the morning, and
That's
it
right.
didn't get above 22.
I remember the day.
But we had a banner turnout. Had some 85 people show up. And the ones that wanted to, you know, we had over 110 or so that originally signed up for the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those didn't want to get out in the cold, and some were going to come to the next one in March. But we had a great seminar. What an inquisitive bunch, too. They kept me going with questions for quite a while afterward.
Excellent.
And yeah, it was a big success. We were real happy. Many of them have engaged with me, and so I'll be busy certainly until the next seminar. But you know, the next one coming up on March the 28th. You know, we do about every other month, so it'll be March 28th, and that's going to be over here at that WLX here at the Country Cafe back in the building. So I'll talk more about that as the Fridays to come. But you know, I was on one of my other shows, and I was talking about somebody made a request, and I want to talk about certain things, and I want to not get too political. You know,
Sure.
If I am, you just tell me, and I will go back off.
Well, it doesn't bother me at all.
I know it doesn't, but I mean, I'm not. It's not a political discussion. I don't want it to be construed that way.
Yes.
And that is, you know, we watch the news, and there's a lot going on. Now that you know, I'm very much reminded of the '60s. When I was a teenager in the '60s, and Vietnam was going on, but there was a lot of protesting.
Sure.
And protesting the war. In all respects, I think that war probably needed to be protested. But,
Yeah.
But you know, I was a teenager, and my biggest worry was when I had to go there.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, there was a lot of that going on in the news, and a lot of court cases came out as a result of that. You know, so I think there's a big misunderstanding of this concept of protesting. Now, the only reason I'm talking about this is because I'm kind of making the analogy that, you know, we are a nation of laws, and the laws are the laws, and you have to follow them. If you don't like them, you have to get them changed.
Yeah.
But once they're in effect, you can't decide the ones you want to follow and the ones you don't. That sort of thing.
Should be.
Because when I talk about dealing with estate planning and care planning, I mean, there's a system of laws in effect for those things. And a lot of them I don't like. Would rather they weren't there, but I have to deal with them the way they are until they get changed. So, same thing here. But what I think people don't understand is, you know, this protesting. You know, nowhere can you find the word protest anywhere, like in our Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the Declaration. They don't exist. It's not there. What it says is you have the freedom of expression. You have the freedom of speech, which is not exactly what you see happening, but you have freedom of expression, which is mostly what we see happening. And that's where protest comes out of. And back in the '60s, the Supreme Court reviewed several cases, and they came out with what the boundaries are when you protest. It's called time, place, and manner. And you don't have a right to do whatever you want. You don't have a right to protest at any time of the day. In other words, timing has to be where it's not offensive to others.
Yeah.
In other words, if you want to protest, you can't protest at 3 o'clock in the morning and disturb people that are trying to sleep. I mean, if you're disturbing the people that you're not protesting about. Okay?
Sure.
And it used to be there was a space requirement. Most places And I know this sometimes from the way back later on after the 60s when I was in nuclear power. I was always at a utility, there was a nuclear generating facility. And there were some up in New England where they were just protesting nuclear power.
Yeah.
And the utility was required to rope off an area for them to protest in. And
Yeah.
that's where you could protest. You couldn't just go stand wherever you want. You had to go to the designated protesting place. Now, they couldn't like put you in a field somewhere where nobody could see you. They have to give you a place, but they can. But the purpose of putting you there is for safety, because
Sure.
one, you can express, but you can't interrupt the operation of whatever you're trying to protest.
Yeah.
You know, that has to still continue on, and you want to make sure that the people that are protesting are safe, and the people that are actually doing what you're protesting about are safe.
Right.
And you know, so you have protesting is freedom of expression means you can speak and you can hold signs, and that's what you can do. You can voice your concern, your discontentment. But what you cannot do is you cannot touch, throw, interfere, or obstruct. You know, you do not have the right to get in the way. And we see a lot of that happening. Okay, and
Yeah.
that's going to come to some ripen to some head here pretty soon, I think, because I think they're being tolerant with it, but they're not. It's not going to do it. They're not going to stay tolerant with it. So think of it this way: if you're going down the highway and you see, you see your wife pulled over and the state policeman's writing her a ticket.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if you stopped and got out and went over and grabbed the ticket away from the cop and said, "I'm not going to let you write this ticket," or "Give me the pencil," or
It's not going to work out very well
the
for
cop
me.
wants to search the trunk and you throw yourself in the trunk and say, "You're not searching my wife's trunk." I mean, how do you think that's going to pan out?
It's not going to work out well
It's not
for
going
me.
to work out well. I mean, and it shouldn't work out well for you. He's conducting his duty, okay?
Right.
You cannot obstruct that.
That's right.
You can go in and say, "Listen, I really don't like what you're doing." So I mean, you can express, not do. So when you start throwing things, or hitting, or taking your car and parking it, for instance, so they cannot do their job,
Sure.
that's obstruction. That's a real problem because it's a crime, and they've not been treating it like one. You know, there's arrests are made, but they've not been treating it like one. But in reality, they can do it to everybody. They
You
can
hit the
arrest
right
everybody
word.
for
They've been
that.
very tolerant of it.
And so, you know, because we're right on the verge of what they call invoking the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act's been invoked over 40 times since it's come around. It's been invoked a lot.
Yeah.
What that will be, if they do, that'll look like this. Now, let's say they say Home Depot, where there's some people they want to go collect because they're illegal or criminal or something. And
Sure.
And the Border Patrol people want to gather them up and take them and go deport them. The Insurrection Act will bring in the military, who will surround this area, a pretty big perimeter around this, and keep everybody else out while they go in and do what they're doing. In other words, they're actually go in and conduct their business without any obstruction. Because the military will be surrounding a bigger spot around that Home Depot,
Yeah.
taking care of the crowd. And again, you know, to throw things, to hit and to hurt, I mean, you're crossing a line. And the reason I say this, I want to give some personal advice. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're playing with a force that you really don't understand how powerful it is. If you get arrested under federal law,
Yeah.
that's got a lot of teeth to it. It's got a lot of teeth to it. Now, you know, if you want to protest, I'm not saying don't protest. I'm not saying that at all. Go do it, but do it the way we're allowed.
lawful way.
Do it the way we're allowed to protest.
Yeah.
Because violence is not in the equation. Now, just
Yeah.
because you see it happening doesn't mean it's okay.
Yeah.
That's going to start getting cracked down on a lot more. I'm thinking. So this time, place, and manner. You know, it's worth looking into, so you know what it is you're allowed to do. And when
Yeah.
you think of it, it makes perfect sense. You can't pick and choose the laws that we want to follow.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's confusing. You know, when you have the people, border control people that are gathering people and deporting them, right? They are following the law as written. Now, this is what part that makes me mad. I heard several congressmen saying, you know, that they say, you know, we're going to oppose this law and all this stuff. Congress wrote this law. It was called the Immigration Reform Act. They did back in the 70s, okay? And one of them actually said, one of them was so stupid, and I hate to be condescending, but there's no other word except stupidity. One of them was so stupid, it said, well, I didn't write that law. Okay, Congress is a collective body, right? This collective body always exists. The internal portions of it, the people in it come and go, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't give you, so, well, I wasn't in Congress when I wrote that law, so I'm not, you know, I'm going to oppose that law. That is
a stupid statement.
That is actually sedition, is what it is.
That's a stupid statement.
It is a crime for him to even say that. And so, I mean, they don't even understand their own purpose and stuff like that. So it's a problem. But so those laws that are in effect. And that's what they're doing, and you're picking and choosing it. We don't want to follow that law. But if you don't want to follow that law, talk to your congressman, talk to your representatives. We are a representative government.
That's right.
We're not a democracy. It's not majority rule.
Amen.
It's republic. We are represented. Go to your representative and say, I want that law changed. Maybe they can lobby and get that law changed. Okay. Now, if they do, then that's the law of the land that will follow. That they'll be following. Now, when you do get it changed, be fully expecting that there's going to be a body of people that don't like that one either.
That's true.
Okay, right?
That's true.
There's never going to be a day when we change a law or make a new law and everybody's happy with it, right?
Yeah.
Because especially if it's criminal law and that kind of thing, because it's always going to be adverse to those who it's designed to be
Who
against.
break the law.
To be
Yeah.
against, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's, please don't do it the way you see it on TV. I think you're asking for trouble. And if you're doing it the way you see it on TV, I'm not talking about getting shot. I'm talking about just being arrested for it.
Yeah.
Because if when I used to practice criminal law, I dabbled a little bit in federal law because I was dealing with federal public defender.
Right.
I didn't do much because they were up in Nashville. A lot of times they have to have hearings. When they have hearings in federal court, there's real strict time requirements, like within 4 hours or something of detaining. And so it was difficult for me, being an hour and a half away, to do a lot of that. So I never did get very involved with it because that was the nearest place for the federal public defender. But I know enough about the sentencing guidelines under the federal rule, and they are very strict. There's no such thing as probation. If you get sentenced to 5 years, you're going to serve 60 months. I mean, there's no time for good behavior. There's no probation whatsoever. And there are mandatory guidelines. When you go to court and the judge sentences you, they have mandatory federal guidelines he has to sentence. And there's very little relief in that. This crime takes 5 years. There's very little wiggle room that they have. They have to do what the law says. And so like these people that burned Teslas, remember that?
Yeah.
Well, they arrested 9 of them. Okay.
Yeah.
That carries 20 years, and if they can attach the terrorist clause to it, they get another 20 years.
Yeah.
And they vowed to make an example of those people. So those people, they're caught red-handed. I mean, you can't say, well, everybody was saying we should do it, so I did it. There's no defense for that. And those people, I mean, we haven't heard from them, but when they get prosecuted, they're going to be spending 20 years in a federal penitentiary. Now, I don't think that's what they had in mind when they were out there thinking, they were going to be on TV and get their 15 minutes of fame.
Yes.
So what I'm saying, you are dealing with a force that you really don't want to. If you want to protest, but please.
Yeah.
Protest peacefully and protest the way you're allowed to. I mean, that's an absolute right.
Yeah, I've harped on an example or two just this morning that I've seen. It was somewhere, I think, that these people had just encamped in the middle of an intersection. They built a fort, more or less, in the middle of an intersection, and people are driving around them, and they so far they've allowed them to do it. But that's a clear violation of law.
I saw yesterday where it wasn't there too long before the local police took it away.
Yeah.
But and they were checking people out.
Well, thank the Lord they did.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, if you let it happen, crime is crime. When you have a law against crime, it doesn't stop people from doing it. It's the law that you can prosecute them for doing it, right?
Right.
In other words, if you say, well, you can't steal, it doesn't mean people aren't gonna.
Yeah.
People will steal, but now the law says you can prosecute them for that conduct.
That's right.
And now, so if somebody does that, it's against the law, but if the police don't respond to do anything, then they get away with it. So you say, well, how can they get away with that? They get away with it because they're being complacent. They're not going and doing what their job is to enforce the law.
Sure.
They're picking and choosing the laws that they want to enforce. And when they do that, that becomes insurrection. George Washington was the first one to use the Insurrection Act. It was the insurrection of the Whiskey Rebellion.
Okay.
If you ever want, here's a good homework assignment. Google George Washington's proclamation for the Whiskey Rebellion. Okay. And you'll get the text of it.
Interesting.
And it was the same thing. I mean, if you can, as you're reading through it, you can see the similarities. Okay. And George Washington wasn't having any of it. Okay. He went there himself with the military and put that down because the local officials were either intimidated or with the rebellion.
Yes.
They cannot do that.
And it was said this is not going to stand. Yeah.
And they're talking, I mean, this also happened during the, leading up to the Civil War. You know, South Carolina just decided we're not going to be part of this nation. We're going to be our own nation. We're going to have our own laws.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a great idea, but it's not as simple as that.
There's going to be some opposition.
Well, you're part of a collective body, you know, yeah.
Yeah, you're under the authority of law, even at that point.
Yeah, so, I mean, the people are not out there breaking the law, doing illegal things, acting like Nazis and stuff like that. They're actually doing what Congress sanctioned them to do, and that's to apprehend and deport.
Yeah.
You know, under whatever circumstances are,
And
that requires deportation.
I think, and it's not new. It's not new to this administration. It's been done in prior administrations over and over and over.
It sure has. It sure has.
So I don't know. Very
But
very
it's,
interesting.
you know, again, it's interesting times. I just think it's helpful to understand what's going on sometimes. It makes it a little clearer.
Yeah. It's very interesting, and especially the Whiskey Rebellion thing, and so many times during our nation's history where, you know, the laws have to be enforced, or we're going to be a nation of just anarchy, and we don't need that. Nobody wants that.
No. I mean, even during Vietnam, when the segregation years, you know, that was the governor wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
You can't have a governor just says, well, I'm not going to do that. You know, you think about it. You have 50 governors, right? And the governor is the executive office, branch of government. You got the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, right?
Right.
And the executive branch is the police, police powers.
Yeah.
You know, the enforcement of law is what their job is to do. And so you have governors of the state, and they're an executive. Their job is the enforcement of law of that state. And who's the head executive that all 50 of them are subservient to? And that's the president, who's the chief executive officer of the United States, of everybody.
Yeah.
His job is law enforcement, because he's an executive branch of government. So that's his job. I mean, there's many other things to his job, but as far as that, he doesn't legislate, he doesn't hold court and interpret law judicially either. The executive branch is the police powers.
Yeah, interesting.
And so when you have a governor,
Good stuff.
Governor says, we are not going to prosecute people here. We're a sanctuary city. We have people here that have broken the law, and we're going to protect them. You are not doing your job. It is insubordination. It is seditious because it's criminal that you're not doing.
Right.
And if you openly do it like that, then it becomes insurrection. So there's a lot of things that have a lot of teeth in there that they can come after you with. And the day is coming when that's going to happen, if it continues. It has to. It has to. It cannot continue like it's going to be and spread. It has to. It's going to get ugly.
We live in interesting times, my friend.
It's going to get ugly. But
We
anyway,
really do.
you know, again, like when you hire me to draft a trust for you, you know, there's certain requirements that are in some of our trusts, like especially our asset protection trust. There's
Sure.
certain requirements. If you want to protect property, there's some things you have to give up. And
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, I don't think I want to follow that law for my clients. I think I'm just going to draft them a trust that doesn't impose that requirement on them, and they can just protect their property and not really have to do anything. You know, you know, I'm not following the law when I do that, and then that trust won't work. If it ever gets taken into court, they're going to say, okay, it's a defective trust because it wasn't written properly,
Right.
in accordance with the law that allows us to do that. So it's the same thing. You know, we don't pick and choose the ones we want. We're bound by it, and we work within it. That's what you hear people talk about the rule of law. That's what we're talking about. The law's already here.
Yeah.
We are a nation of laws. Those we have to follow.
That's
And some of them are bad, and some of them get overturned and abolished. That's happened throughout the years too.
absolutely.
You know, there used to be back in the Vietnam days, there was a push. It didn't last very long, but they wanted to pass a law or a constitutional amendment that they couldn't burn the flag.
Yes.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm as patriotic as the next person. And here in the South, people are very patriotic. And
Yes, we are.
I love that about the South. But from a lawyer standpoint, I mean, that is a freedom of expression to burn the flag. And that didn't, it started, but it fizzled out right away because of that. You know, it's, you know, you kind of look at it this way. It's almost, it also overlaps on property law. You know, when you buy a flag, you own it.
Yes.
I mean, so if you own it, can't you do what you want with what you own?
Yep.
So it's a difficult thing for them to enforce, and it is I mean, I don't agree with it. You know, it kind of boils my blood when people burn the flag, but it is freedom of expression. It is allowed.
Yep.
So now there's, you know, you can carry things too far, and then it's not allowed. So you need to know and understand where those boundaries are that you don't cross and get yourself into trouble with that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's just my.
Don't go burn somebody else's flag.
Well, there you go. Because when you think
You
about
know,
it,
because that doesn't belong to you.
if you take the flag out of it, it's property.
It's property.
You know,
It belongs to somebody.
here's a good example of that too. You know, when I used to do criminal law,
Yeah.
you know, let's say you have an old hauled out hull of a car in the backyard.
Yeah.
All the windows are broken, maybe except one.
Yeah.
It's rusty, the wheels are gone, the engine's been practically scrapped for parts. Somebody comes along and throws a rock and it breaks that window.
Yeah.
What do we have? Do we have vandalism? Well, here's the thing. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, but it's an old junk car. Well,
Yeah.
it's my junk car.
Yeah.
Yeah, or somebody steals it. I've had how many cases people see stuff laying on the ground and they pick it up and just walk off with it. And it's like, well, it's just worthless junk. But it's somebody else's worthless junk. It's theft. How can it be theft? It has no value. Value is not in the statute. It doesn't say value. The only time value is in the statute for theft is when you deal with the punishment.
Yeah.
In other words, if it's $0 to $1,000, it's an E felony, or if it's 0 to 500, it's a misdemeanor. So the value has to do with the punishment, but it just says depriving somebody of their property without their consent, and that is their property. So it was just junk, but that's somebody else's junk. So if you burn somebody else's flag, take the flag out of the equation. It's just it belongs to somebody else, and you burned it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. All that makes complete sense.
It does, but not when you watch the news, because you know when they go into that church, those folks went into that church because the Supreme Court also carved out protected areas.
Yes.
The church was one of them, and that SAVE Act, not the SAVE Act, the FACE Act, the one that has to do with disturbing in a church. Man, that's got a lot of teeth to it. So there's people they arrested. One of them was an attorney. Can you remember?
Yeah.
One of them was an attorney. She said openly says, "I'm an activist attorney. It was my goal." And those people all confessed on television. She said it was my goal to go there and obstruct and disturb business as usual as much as possible.
Yep.
Which is exactly what the statute says they can't do. So they're looking at some pretty harsh punishments. I mean, because there's also a clause.
I hope that we have enough people in positions of authority with the backbone to execute the punishment for that.
I think that Pam Bondi's one of them, but
I hope.
But you know that the First Amendment says you have the right to freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Is the exact same amendment says you also have the right to freedom of religion. Now, when you have those things, and you can come up with circumstances where they overlap.
Yeah.
This being one of them.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court has already carved that out and said a right is something you can exercise until it offends somebody else's right or tramples on somebody else's right. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Right.
That's what the Ninth Amendment's all about. That we have the states' rights.
Sure.
So, in other words, you have right. It's a good one. You have an absolute right to travel. Okay, that falls under life, liberty. There's a lot of right to travel cases, right?
Yes.
You have a lot of right to go from point B to point A to point B, whether you're in a car or an Amish buggy,
Yeah.
or on your feet.
Yeah.
But if point A and point B, you got to go across your neighbor's cornfield and you don't have the right to trample his court, because while you're exercising your right to travel, you're damaging someone else's right to own property.
Right.
Okay, so it's not absolute. It's definitely not absolute.
Yeah.
So the same thing with religion. You can't go in there and do that and disturb those people that are worshiping, because they have a right to do what they're doing just as much as you have a right to protest, which is why they put boundaries on the right to protest and the right to worship.
Yeah.
Because what's protected was in the church.
Sure.
It's not religion is not necessarily protected if you're doing it on the town square.
Yeah. What if we put it on the did an opposite thing? Let's say that a group of church members decided to go to a big group of church members decided to interrupt a Titans football game and have church in the middle of the football game.
Yeah. I mean,
Not going to work.
no, it's not going to work. Again, the way to make sense of it is, you have these rights, but they're absolutely not absolute.
Yeah.
People say, I got a right to speech, I can say anything I want. No, you can't. There's protected speech, there's hate speech, we got hate speech.
Yeah.
There's incisive, if you incite, if you say things like, let's all get together and go storm the Capitol, right? That's not freedom of speech, that's inciting insurrection.
Yeah.
And so that's protected.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's the hate speech we have. You also, the speech that is harmful to others. The old cliche they used to say is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah.
And say, oh, free speech, I'm allowed to yell fire because I'm on the peak. You can't do things that are going to negatively affect others.
Yeah.
That's the whole concept. And if it wasn't that way, things would be complete chaos and anarchy.
Well, unfortunately, there's evidently a great number of people who think that's okay.
That's right, and they're uneducated, and they don't want to. And the people they're listening to, and some of the leaders are uneducated because they don't understand that.
Yeah, evidently not.
Or they just completely lie. You know, I thought I heard somebody say something. You know, one guy was saying, you know, how can you do all this while children are being dragged off into concentration camps? I'd like to see one of these concentration camps. That intrigues me. Where are we taking people and putting them in children?
Yeah,
you know,
we're not.
It's just 100% false. It's said to inflame and get everybody riled up. There's no such thing.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
maybe when they get deported, that happens to them. But who cares? You know, they're not supposed to be here in the first place. Send them back. If they want to escape there, you know, then they can come here in the way they're supposed to come here.
Right.
And they'll be okay. But we're not doing any of that. Unless they're referring to alligator Alcatraz type places.
Yeah.
But those are to hold people who are convicted of crime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different animal.
I mean,
That's totally different.
It's not a concentration camp if you're in prison. It's not a concentration camp if you're in the county jail.
No.
It's not a concentration camp if you're in alligator Alcatraz.
Well, one of our regulars wants to chime in on this.
Well, I haven't talked much about estate planning.
We'll get there.
Maybe we'll get started.
We'll get there in just a moment. Hey, good morning. You're on WDXE with us.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, I just cut a long distance conversation short because I had a couple of things I wanted to. They finally said, they usually are the one that needs to go. They finally said, what's going on? I said, there's an attorney on the radio and I need to get to it. Actually, I wanted to review something that happened. If I'm not mistaken, he wasn't there last Friday. And before that, Mr. Fox was there, so it kind of ties in with what happened with Mr. Fox. Something came up. A veteran called in, and at the time, I didn't even connect it with a will or a trust, and he had an interesting discussion, but I kind of didn't take notes on it, not thinking it applied, but I got to thinking, working on my RMD for required minimum distribution, and the discussion he had about something I called in. Basically, I kind of know how real estate works now, but my question is, let's say someone qualifies for a trust, but they have a required minimum distribution that's going to be coming in, or this man that called in, the veteran, he was unsure he had back pay on veterans' benefits. How could that be treated if someone had a trust? And could a special will, just in general, what did he cover? Because I didn't take notes, not thinking it applied, but thinking it could apply. Do I need to stay on to ask for a definite question?
You got her question, you understand it? I don't.
Well, there's a lot of apples and
A
oranges.
lot of apples and oranges.
The man called in, his concern, he was very
I remember.
sensitive, but he was concerned because they haven't paid him, and it's been several months. And Mr. Pierchoski touched on something about, well, I guess, he said if it all came in a lump sum, that could be an issue, and he was covering the difference between money coming in and a trust, and then things like this happening.
Okay. All right, Peggy.
I got it.
All right. We got you. Thank you, hon.
All right, I do remember the call, but it was in the contents of long-term care.
Yeah.
And the question was, he had I can't remember, maybe, I don't know, 4 years of back pay or something like that, that he thought he was going to get. And when he gets it, it does come in a lump sum. And he was worried that when he got that, would that over-resource him? Okay? Because
Yes.
And if it's in terms of qualifying for long-term care. And the answer was, there's a way to deal with that. It's actually in the 10-care manual. It's for lump sum back pay, lump sum back disability, and stuff like that. When you get it, there's a period of 9 months that you have to do something with it, and before it's considered a resource, that over-resource.
Okay.
You know, and because it's not considered income, you know, it's because of its back catch-up nature.
Yes.
Right? So let's say the gentleman finally gets his VA disability. They start paying him every month, but then they get a check for, I don't know, $50,000. It's supposed to cover all this back time.
Right.
The question, you know, is that income? It's not because of, or it's not treated as that yet. Okay, so there's a 9-month period where you can deal with that and still not get over-resource yourself. So you have time to deal with it because you'd be unable to deal with it if it came and you had to deal with it in that calendar month.
Sure.
Because when income comes in, if you still have the income the first day of the next calendar month, it's no longer considered income anymore, it's now considered a resource, and that's where the problem is. That will over-resource you, and then you won't be eligible for the benefits anymore. Now, the trust, I think, where the trust came in, because, you know, she mentioned about a trust, and she made the terms, if you're eligible for a trust, there's no eligibility for a trust. If you want one, write one.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be eligible for one, you can just create one.
Right.
But the trust probably that came up with that was, if you have to deal with that money, that you can put money that puts you over the resource limit into a trust. It's called a QIT trust, or sometimes called a Miller trust. I think I've talked about it before, and I think the caller has brought that up before. And that's a way to put overage into that's not counted against you, because once you put your income that puts you over the cap into a QIT, the only place that money can go is toward the cost of care.
Yeah.
And that way, you're giving it up, but they're not going to penalize you for being over the cap as long as it's used for the cost of care. So
Right.
That's how the trust comes in. That I remember that call, and that call was all in the confines of long-term care.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, if there wasn't long-term care, I mean, you just get a lump sum payment, right? You just put it in your bank account.
Sure.
Whatever you do. It's kind of like when you sign up for Social Security in the first time. You usually get about 7 or 8 months worth, depending on how that works. And, you get a big check up front, and then they start getting your monthly bill.
Right.
And so, I think that answers the question, because there really wasn't, if you had a trust when that happened, you could certainly take that money and put it in the trust. Now, what has that nothing to do with it, or what she mentioned are RMDs. Those are something completely different. Those are the required minimum distributions you have to take at age 73 if you have an IRA or 401k, one of those tax-deferred retirement funds.
Sure.
You pay into those things, and it accumulates.
Right.
At some point, you're going to have to take distributions, because that's what they're designed for. They're designed to put money into, and then have something pay you a stream of income during your retirement years. That's what it's supposed to do.
Sure.
Now, the advantage is you put the money in, you don't pay the tax on it. It's pre-taxed. And now, when you start taking these distributions, it's taxed as it comes back to you as income in that calendar year. And you can't defer them forever. You have to start taking them. And so at 73, if you're not taking any distribution, you have to take at least the required minimum, which is different for the different things, but
Yeah.
you have to take that out, okay? But you can take out more if you want, or you can start taking out at 59 and a half. You don't have to wait till you're 73, but you can't, but you can take it. But the thing is, once it starts paying back to you, let's say it pays you $2,000 every month. Every month you got $2,000 worth of income. It needs to be reported on your tax form, because that income's not been paid on that yet.
Sure.
And so, $2,000 a month for 12 months, you're going to have $24,000 worth of income now that you haven't paid tax on top of whatever else you have. Because
Right.
when you put it in the retirement account, it was deferred funds. You deferred the payment of the tax.
Okay.
So this lump sum really doesn't have anything to do with that. IRAs wouldn't pay you a lump sum. What an IRA, the only time a lump sum is associated with a retirement account is if you cash it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me go with this question, because this gets asked a lot. Because IRAs, when I talk about IRA, I'm talking about IRAs, 401ks, 459B plans, all these things you put money into, and you defer the tax until later when you're going to start taking distributions.
Right.
Some of those get pretty big for Some of those get pretty big for folks.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to know, can I put that in a trust?
Yes.
And the answer is you can't put it into any trust. And the reason is you don't own it. People get mad. I got $200,000 in that thing. You're darn right I own it. Well, you don't own the $200,000. What you own are the future distributions, the stream of income. That's what you signed up for.
Okay.
Now, it's a beneficiary-driven instrument, which means at your death, if there's property in that, you can leave it to an heir. The principal's not gone.
Right.
So the only way to put it in the trust is cash it out. Say, hey, I got $200,000 in there, I want it all out. Well, you cash it out, well, you gotta pay the tax on it, right, because now it's been distributed to you. And you can put the lump sum in the trust, but now it's not an IRA anymore, it's just a lump sum of money.
Yes.
That's how you can put it into a trust. Usually not the best idea, it can be cost inefficient doing that. And again, paying the tax on it's not the deal breaker in my opinion. What the deal breaker could be is if you cash the whole thing out, it could push you into an entirely different bracket, which even then is only another 2.5%, but still, we usually don't do that unless there's some reason to do it.
Right.
But you cannot put the IRA in as an IRA. There's nothing you own there. Let's liken it to life insurance.
Okay.
You got life insurance. Let's say somebody says, I got a $1 million life insurance policy.
Right, okay,
They don't own any of that. That's a death benefit.
right,
I mean, they don't own any of it. You can't go cash in on that. You can't borrow it. You can only borrow it if it's like whole life. I'm talking about term life.
right,
You have to die for somebody else to get the $1 million, right?
Right.
I mean, you have no ownership in that. We don't put that in trust because you don't own anything.
Right.
It's not a resource. It's not income.
interesting,
It's a death benefit that somebody gets upon your death.
yes.
Now,
And that's
I mean,
usually spelled out in the policy
That's
itself.
exactly right. And sometimes you can insure yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes for other people, but you have no ownership in it whatsoever. If you don't own it, you can't put it in trust. You can't put something you don't own into a trust, or you can't put something somebody else owns into your trust,
Right.
without their permission at least.
Sure.
But now if you have whole life where you have some equity in the policy, which is much more expensive than life insurance. What you own is what we call the cash surrender value. So at any point in time, you can call them and say, hey, if I cash this, say it's a $500,000 policy. The cash surrender value is always some mere tiny percentage of that. It may be
Yes.
$5,000 or $6,000, or maybe even 15 or 20, depending on the size of it and how long you've had it.
Yeah.
But you could cash it out. Now, the reason we would ever do that is because if you go into long-term care, that cash surrender value is an asset, the accountable asset they're going to expect you to cash out to help pay for your care.
Right,
So, so the IRA is in that category where you don't own it. If you don't own the lump sum, you own the future distributions it's going to give you. Now you can get the lump sum, but you gotta cash it out, which means you gotta
yeah,
sever it from all the terms and conditions of being an IRA, because now all bets are off. The taxes due, and you just get it all at once. And that's one of the reasons why you're penalized for doing it too early. You put it in, you get all these benefits. It's not economically feasible to the people holding these things until you reach a certain age, and that's 59 and a half. They say if you take out, you get a substantial penalty for early withdrawal.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about.
yeah,
What they're saying is, listen, if we'd have kept this till 59, we'd have made this much money. So if you're taking it out, there's a penalty so that we get to
So
where
we
we
recover.
would have been had you kept it in here. Because
Yeah.
they don't do it because they're nice guys. The banks and insurance
They're doing it to
don't
make
do
money.
Don't do it just to be cool. They do it for a fee. I mean,
That's
for a
right.
fee. But you give them the money, and they make the money work. And the money makes money, and that's where they get a lot of that. I mean,
Right.
your thing grows, like anything else. You put it in, and it grows in value because it's invested in stuff.
sure.
But they get their cut. And if you cut it short, you're cutting your cut short.
This whole system revolves around everybody making money.
Well, I mean, that's true.
That's just the way it is. That is the way it is.
That's like all these bad things they're finding. Follow the money, and you'll get to the source of what the problem is.
Yeah, yeah. Stan Pierchoski, everybody. By the way, the phone lines are open, 766-9393. Stan is Pierchoski Estate Law in Pulaski, Tennessee. And our regular guest here on Friday mornings. Look, always good to have you. And we've got a few more minutes left. We've got another 15 minutes or so to converse.
Want to call in and ask questions, please do.
Estates, estate planning, wills, trust, all that kind of stuff. I was looking up things to consider, and the core documents that are involved in what you do. Of course, the will, of course, the trust, durable power of attorney.
All those core documents support the trust plan.
They support them. There's one in this list. There's one called healthcare power of attorney.
Correct.
What's the difference between what's called a durable power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney?
Yeah, I mean there is. Our power of attorney here in Tennessee and in most states is bifurcated into two powers. One for healthcare and healthcare only. That's what we call the Advanced Care Directive.
Okay.
And the other one's for everything else.
Yes.
A lot of people call it the financial power of attorney. It's more than that. It's buy, sell, sue, be sued, invest, as well as just write checks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, it's everything but healthcare. So those are the two. It's called the general. Actually, it's a general power of attorney, but it can also be a durable general power of attorney.
Okay.
And that's the one that's for everything else. But a lot of people call it the financial power of attorney. And that's okay. It's just everything other than health. Now, so that's the difference between them. And another difference between them is the general durable power of attorney or the financial power of attorney can be available immediate. You can have people act for you now, not necessarily upon an incapacity.
Right.
Now, there's language in there that the incapacity still exists.
Yes.
I mean, it still triggers on an incapacity, but it doesn't have to be. So if you have, let's say you want to take a, I don't know, 3-month European vacation. You tell somebody like your kid or somebody, take care of things while I'm gone. Bills need to be paid. Just, you know,
Sure.
that person can do it. Now, you're not incapacitated,
Right.
but so they can act now, before an incapacitation.
Right.
But if you get hit by a bus and go into a coma, there's language in there about incapacitation that triggers it too.
Sure.
And that's the difference between durable and durable general. When it says it's a durable power of attorney, durable general, somewhere there's a sentence that says any subsequent incapacity does not trigger the loss of this power of attorney.
Yes.
Yeah. So now the difference there is, you know, people can act for you now if you want them to. They don't.
Sure.
That doesn't mean they're going to. They're only going to do it if you want them to. But the healthcare power of attorney it's a springing power. It springs to life upon an incapacity. In other words, if you can make your own health decisions, nobody can make them for you.
Right.
You have to be incapacitated for that
Okay.
to spring to life. And now the agent you named in there is making the decisions for you.
So that would be what we're talking about when we say healthcare power of attorney.
Healthcare power of attorney.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some supporting documents called a living will.
I was going to ask you about that.
Living will is kind of a document where you want to deal with concerns like if you're in a hospital or if you're in medical care and you have food allergies or food you just don't want to eat, or religious beliefs, you know, from blood transfusions and stuff like that, where you can voice those to the people taking care of you. Those are your preferences. You know,
Yes.
for stuff like that. Healthcare power of attorneys actually deals with the quality of life and the resuscitative means based on what quality of life you want.
You'll hear, and sometimes if you go into a medical facility for some kind of procedure or something like that, they'll ask you about your living will or your what's called your advanced directive.
Advanced care directive. That's
Yeah,
right.
advanced care
Almost
directive.
every state has an advanced care directive. Ours is called the Tennessee Advanced Care Directive.
Yeah.
And that's the one where you designate some people, and then you decide whether what quality of life is acceptable to you.
Yeah.
So on there it'll say something like, they name four qualities of life. Like the first one is I'm going to do it from memory. The first one is called permanent unconscious condition. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, the definition, and what I'm telling you is all statutory. This
Sure.
document is not my words. It's
Okay.
all the state of Tennessee's words.
Okay.
So it has permanent unconscious condition. It's defined as I become totally unaware of surroundings or people and have little chance of ever coming out of the coma. So what they're describing is this brain dead vegetative state.
Sure.
Now notice they said little chance of coming out. They will never go to zero, right?
Yes.
Because anything's possible, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, so the question you ask yourself on this form is, do I consider that I just described? You know, I'm unaware of surroundings or people, and there's very little chance I'm going to come out of this coma. Do I consider that an acceptable quality of life or unacceptable? Okay?
Right. Right.
If you say, so you pick. You know, the next one's called permanent confusion, and it's defined as you have you cannot make, you do not understand or can't make decisions. You don't recognize loved ones, nor can you carry on a conversation with them. So what they're describing is very advanced dementia.
Yes.
Very advanced. Again, the question is acceptable quality of life or unacceptable quality of life.
Right.
Third one is called dependent on all activities of daily living. We have these things called ADLs, activities of daily living.
Yes.
And there's like 8 of them: clothing yourself, feeding yourself, bathing yourself, toileting yourself, taking your own prescription medication. There's like 8 of them. And if you need help with 3 or more of them, you're eligible for full skilled nursing facility, a nursing home.
Yes.
This says you're dependent on all of them, meaning you can't get through a day without help on every single activity it requires to get through the day. Ambulating yourself, walking, sitting down,
Yeah.
everything you need help with. And the question again is acceptable or unacceptable. Then the third one is end-stage illness. If you have an end-stage illness, you're terminal and you're not responding to medication nor treatment. So again, acceptable or unacceptable. Then you go flip the page, and on the second page it talks about treatment. And it lists 4 things there. Now the treatment there are the heroic measures,
Sure.
or the life-sustaining measures. So you hear people talk about resuscitate or do not resuscitate.
Yes.
These are the things they're talking about to do or to not do. And one is CPR, that was a ventilator, treatment of new condition, and feeding, either IV feeding or stomach tube feeding. So these heroic measures come into play that if you have one of these,
Yes.
if you have one of these qualities of life, and you need one of these treatments to stay alive, the question is, do you want it? Yes or no? There's a yes or no question there. So here's an example. That can be confusing because the very first treatment is called CPR.
Yes.
Okay, and people look at that and say, well, sure, I want that. They mark yes. That may not be the answer you want to give because let's say you're in this brain dead vegetative coma that I said, permanent unconscious condition, right?
Yes.
And your heart stops. And it's like, well, we can start your heart, but it doesn't do anything for the coma. I mean, we can get your heart started again,
Yeah.
but you're still in a coma. So if you have elected that as a yes, as a resuscitative measure, you could be bringing your, and you have on the other, you have the other one marked as unacceptable quality of life, you could be bringing yourself back into an unacceptable quality of life, which is what the whole thing's designed to prevent.
Yes.
It doesn't mean those heroic measures are not in a vacuum. So it doesn't mean CPR anytime.
Right.
So I always tell people when we're filling that out, I say, here's what it doesn't mean. If you leave here today, in my office, we're signing the documents, right? If you leave here today and you go to Walmart and you keel over, I mean, have them shock you, have them thump on you, have them do whatever they need to do to bring you back. This has nothing to do with it. The Advanced Care Directive has nothing to do with it. What the Advanced Care Directive has, you got to have one of the unacceptable qualities of life first, and then have. So if you're in a hospital and you code out, you went for an operation, things go south, and you end up in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in a coma, and the doctors say, not much chance of this person coming out of it, right? And then their heart stops. It's like, well, do you want them to start it again and be brought back into that quality of life? That's the question. That's not any time. Like the feeding tube. You get a feeding tube, which is either IV or stomach tube.
Yeah.
If you go to your doctor tomorrow and say, let's say you have an advanced care directive and you have all that marked no. Well, if you go to your doctor and he says, hey, I got bad news for you. You've got Parkinson's disease and you have to have this stomach tube to feed because, my father had one of those. And you have a hard time swallowing. And your answer then is going to be, well, yeah, I don't want to die, right? I want give me a feeding tube. That's not what the advanced care directive is about. If you're in a brain dead vegetative state and they need to feed you with a feeding tube to keep you alive, do you want them to do that? That's so you have to view it in the fact that you have one of these unacceptable or one of these qualities of life they're talking about.
It has to be well thought out.
You're in that position, and do you want to be brought back into that position?
Yeah.
Some say, and it's a personal choice. Many people say, permanent unconscious condition, no, I don't want that. But I've had people say, hey, if there's a 2% chance I'm coming out of a coma, I want it. I want to take it. And I get that. I mean, that's that some people say that permanent confusion. I don't want them to do anything to me just because I can't remember anything.
Yeah.
And, I get it. Those are personal choices, and that's why you have to fill them out.
Sure.
You fill them out, and then you name an agent, because if these things come up, you're incapacitated.
Right.
And the agent has to do what you've already filled out. They're not deciding to pull the plug.
They have to do what's
They're the ones that give
directed.
the enforcement. They're the ones that say this is what they wanted. Because if you say pull the plug and they say don't do it, it's inconsistent. It's going to raise a major red flag with the medical community, and they're bound by the advanced care directive.
Yeah. So that's an important document.
Now, if you don't fill it out, then the people you name as agent would just have to make that decision for you. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to my heirs. I wouldn't put them in that position.
Interesting.
Because that can mess people up for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
They have to make that decision to a loved one.
Wow.
But they can live with it better if I already made that decision and said, this is what I want. And they do what I want. They may not like it any better, but at least they know they're doing what I wanted.
Yeah.
At least there would be a guilt trip for them.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's an important document.
It is.
It's a very important document.
It's a simple one to fill out, but it can be confusing.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of time left, but I was thinking about just going through what we might talk about today. Of course, we went off. We've been in a couple of different directions.
Went down a rabbit hole there at first,
but that's okay. We've got. Let me think. What are some of the things that people may not think of or overlook when they're preparing these trusts?
Well, there's several. One that comes to mind is dealing with minor children. Putting stuff in place to take if something happens to me, like say you're a young couple.
Yes.
What's going to happen to my minor children if something happens to us?
Yes.
That's something I think is overlooked a lot. You know, and you can spell out what can happen to them. You got the same thing. You got to sit down. We got to talk about it and go over the options and stuff like that. And I would recommend it because if you don't do anything, it's not going to be pretty for the kids. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, Aunt Gertrude over here, she's going to take care of the kids if something happens to us. She may or may not be, but that's no legal authority. She's certainly not going to get them up front.
Yeah.
They're just going to say, here, Aunt Gertrude, here's these kids because you're their aunt.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. They will go into child service protective custody. Now, they may end up with Aunt Gertrude if they decide she's the best person.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done anything.
If you haven't done anything,
Yeah, but
that's
you can
right.
you can nominate guardians during life.
Yeah.
Both temporary what we call short term, and then also the long term.
Yeah. I would think, Stan, that it would be very important that your extended family know at least a little bit about what you have planned.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you do a lot of stuff like this, you need to let them know that you're doing it. So a lot of times you name them as some kind of fiduciary. You want to say, hey, if this happens, I named you as my successor trustee. You know, if somebody says, you know what, don't do that. I don't want the job. I just don't want the responsibility. You kind of need to know that before you pick them, because then you've picked somebody and now it's failed before it's even come into play.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they'll say, yeah, I'll be glad to do that for you.
Yeah.
Do that for you.
That would be important.
I would. I mean, it's a good talk to have with people.
Yeah.
Planning.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
the people that you're leaving behind, the people dealing with it, and the
Yep.
more planning you have, the more laid out it is for them, and they don't have to make decisions that they don't want to make.
What an important thing to do for you and your family and those who you want to leave things to. It couldn't be a smarter thing for someone to do is to make this kind of planning.
Oh yeah, I mean the people that do it, you know, I had some folks just this week. It was a signing week for us. Some people that just expressed, man, we've been trying to do this for like 4 years.
Yeah.
We're just so happy to get it done. We're just so happy to get it done. We feel so much better that this is in place. They
Yeah.
just feel like a weight's been lifted when they do it.
Yeah.
'Cause if you're procrastinating, it's because you don't understand what the options are you can do. Come to a seminar.
Yep.
Next one's March 28th, Saturday, 10 o'clock, right here at the WLX radio station in the back of the building. Will's Trust of the Nursing Home, and that's what we'll talk about. So, or call us, we can send you a recorded version of it if you can't make that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That phone number, Stan, Pulaski?
931-363-7222. 931-363-7222. Or you can go to my website, which is, you can go to Estate Plan Stan.
That's right.
And you can email me a question if you want to from there, or read what we have on there. Talk, you know, we have a lot of YouTube videos on there and selective subjects.
A wealth of information, my friend.
I hope so. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what's designed to be. I don't keep the website up, but people do. So.
Yeah. A lot of great information. Stan Pierchoski, everybody at Pierchoski Estate Law, located in Pulaski, Tennessee. And that phone number again, 363-7222. The website is estateplanstan.com. Visit him today. See you next Friday, buddy.
Always a pleasure.